Good morning, everybody. I am Charles McFall, Rock Out of Podcasting and Director of the Digital Media Track. How y'all doing this morning? Woo. I know it's 10 a.m. on a Friday. Wednesday's a new Saturday, is what they say. I don't know how that phrase goes, but it works. With us today, this is Finding the Stories Presents Where We Create. Every morning we're going to do a where, when, how, those kind of things of the motivation of creating and trying to set the tone for the whole day with the conference. And this morning, the executive producer of Finding the Stories, here's Phil Keating.
Hi, everyone. I'm Phillip D. Keating, also known as the Imaginary Nomad all over the internet. And I am an improv comedian that does Botch Podcast, which is a improv comedy show loosely draped in the loose skin of 5e D&D.
And thanks to Chris Wisdom, who's always hustling, he ran into Ming Chen, and Ming is graciously, you have been awesome to show up this morning.
I was at the Metro Diner last night at 4 a.m. I was like, I get up at 10 o'clock, but that's how much I love you guys. So, my name is Ming Chen. I'm the short Asian of podcasting, I guess. Like I give like cool titles. You might know me from a little TV show called Comic Book Men, but I love podcasting. I run a trio of podcast studios in the New Jersey area called A Shared Universe, where we basically set up studios for people to rent out to launch and record their podcasts. I go to schools, I go to colleges, we teach classes at the studio.
Nice.
And basically, I love this medium, this format so much that I genuinely think everybody should start a podcast. Everybody should be podcasting. It's so accessible to everybody. And it's fun. This is so much fun. I want to show everybody else how much fun this is.
I know it's early. I'm going to need you to bring the energy up this morning. All right, come on. We got to get them going this morning.
Yeah, right.
We need that 4 a.m. Metro energy.
Yeah. Well, I had it, and then I just saw we're all going to hell now.
Yeah.
So
here's the fun thing. We have a 2-camera setup this year, so you might show up on the stream and recording. So smile as things go on, as we reference things. And of course, we got questions. You have questions. But today we're talking about kind of the where you create. And we're going to start here with DragonCon. A lot of people come in, they want to get started, they want to get going. We'll talk about a few little things right here on the banner. We've got Cure Childhood Cancer. That is a charity for DragonCon 2023. And that's the first QR code you can donate. The middle QR code is a digital media track link tree. It's everything you need to know about us. It's our Discord, both Twitch channels, all the social medias, and our Discord is open. It's free. It's a great community for creators. And then Bolt is the outside QR code there. But you brought up the studios, Ming, and that's something that I think has been awesome. Coming up through podcasting and through digital media, a bunch of people did try to capitalize on it. And there were some shared workspaces that then started putting podcast stuff in. But you opened, you're laughing because you know how that goes, right? You come in, $75, $100 an hour, and they just go here. Go record in a back room somewhere. Yeah.
Well, I laughed. I think maybe about a year or two ago, I saw a press release. And a lot of people, my inbox started blowing up. They're like, "Hey, so we hear Staples is going to start putting in podcast studios into their stores, so you can go podcast at Staples." I'm like, those guys can't even make a copy correctly, and now they expect to record like a podcast. It's like, what do they know about podcasting? Like they barely know anything about making business cards. They misspell my name. Like they can't even get that right. And and like they never have the SD cards I want in stock. Like now they're going to go into the world of podcasting. Like they had teamed up with Rode, I think.
I love how you folks, they don't have the SD card. They don't have my SD cards.
It's like, where's my 64 gig SanDisk? Like, what the hell? So I laughed when I saw that because at that point we had launched the studios and they're like, "Oh, you got some competition." I'm like, I don't think so. I think we're good.
Well, I know in the generic studio setting, in that corporate thing, it is a back room and it's one price. If you just come in and all it is microphones and then have somebody make sure it's set up right.
Yeah, and then they leave.
And then they leave. And if you want somebody to produce it, which is really just hit record and then hand you a disc, you have to bring in your little flash drive. And you got to pay like double the amount. So how do you work it?
It's like, so our model is, we've set up the studios and you rent out. We start at $45 an hour, which is probably
really low.
Probably too low. And that's for audio only. If you want video or streaming, you add on to that. Sure. But my philosophy is that podcasting, ideally, if you want to become successful, you release and record weekly. And at $45, like that'll be like, oh, I can do that. That's accessible to everybody. If it's 100 or 200, times 4, that's a lot of money. Like not even the gym memberships that try to rip you off charge that much, you know. So and you know, I'm probably gonna hit a point where I'm gonna have to raise that slightly, but we found that was a pretty good balance. You know, the dilemma was,
is that where you started? Y'all start higher or lower?
no, we've been at 45 for 5 years.
Oh wow!
And
All right.
yeah, I did the calculations. Like, listen, if we raise much higher, then you're gonna hit a point where people are like, well, I'm just gonna go to Best Buy and buy it and figure this out on my own.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that comes with the engineer. You get an engineer there to make sure you recorded correctly. But more importantly,
So
to
for
be
$45, you actually have somebody there running the board, running sound, make sure everything's balanced.
yeah. And
That's
and it's not even really
How do you pay an engineer to do that?
I was going to say that, like the payroll alone, but like obviously it's working for you guys. But
yeah, you know, we do it in volume. We're gonna, you know, we make our money in volume, and
That's
then we also have corporate accounts, and we charge more if we go off site.
Yeah,
So it all kind of balances out. You know, the ideal situation is where we'll have, you know, 1 million of these, and then you know, through volume we'll do pretty well.
But what I like about that in your system is that you're not gatekeeping with like any kind of pricing, because $45 in hindsight is like very like that's a gallon, like a full tank of gas.
Yeah,
right?
There's not even says a gallon of milk.
Yeah.
I know it's gotten high, Phil,
but like I live in a small town in Pennsylvania, in Gettysburg, and we do have a professional studio. And so like when we were first starting out, we went to them to kind of tour their studio, see what we're going to get, maybe do like 1 or 2 episodes in there to get that real fine quality. And they were charging at start $200 an hour, right? And we run 3-hour sessions. So it's just like, no,
I mean, you could buy your own gear for that,
and
then figure out how to use it.
And the thing was like, yes, the space was beautiful and the board was beautiful, but at that time we even had better microphones than they had in their own studio. So it's like, why are we going to, you know, even entertain this idea? But like $45 is like, that's a get out, see how you like it, and then hopefully, you know, they can transfer onto something else and do their own.
Yeah, I wanted people to not even have a second thought, because most podcasters you meet now is like, hey, I've been thinking about this for 1 year or 2 years, and you know, finally they decide to do it. Like, you don't want to stop them there with because of a price. You know, you want them to come in, you know, see the price, like, okay, I could do that, and then get excited. Like, you want them to be excited to come in and record, and then once you get them in, you want them to have so much fun that they can't wait to record the next week. And I think we've achieved that.
We need to talk franchising. Coming to
you're from Gettysburg. Are you from Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
This is a great podcasting town.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want to open one up here badly, but you know what's preventing me? Money and people, which which is, you know, the bane of any business. So I will figure it out. I have a great support system here. I have many friends here that'll help me out and put me up, and they've opened up small businesses, and they're friends with the chambers of commerces.
Hey, I got a couch in my studio, and it's a separate studio. It's like studio apartment studio. You can sleep on my couch, man.
And we got 2 staples that you could probably.
I don't want to go over this. Like, hey, can I just buy the gear that? Because as far as I know, they never did it. Did they? I didn't hear anything.
I like to just think of other companies and corporations that do this. Like, imagine going to your local Perkins. You know, go in for breakfast and record your podcast.
Go to your Wawa.
Yeah, go to local Wawa. You know,
in my head it's like, all right, we're ready to record, and they have that big freaking easy button. Like, you hit that, and like that's. It was so
ridiculous. It records it for you. Yeah,
that would be genius.
It was just so ridiculous when I heard that, and So I think in the end, my inspiration was threefold. One, I did. I went to go do something for Kevin in LA once, and my favorite hotel there has 3 recording studios in the basement.
Oh, nice.
And which I thought was unique. And I was like, why do you have recording studios in a hotel in Hollywood? Like, well, we have a lot of rock stars that stay here, and we're open 24/7. If they ever get hit by inspiration, we want them to come down and record here. And if you look at their roster, it's Aerosmith is there all the time. But they've recorded like Adele and you know, like Nicki Minaj. They recorded Oscar-winning tracks down there. And I was like, hey, can I take a look? And I went, and you know, it's pretty palatial, dark wood. Like, it looks like, you know, like rock star status down there. And I remember I was like, man, I would love to record something here one day, but I don't have a band. I don't play music. I don't even have any talent, so I can't sing.
I would not say you don't have talent.
So I was like, all right. So I squashed that. But I came back the next year, and I was like, wait a minute. I have a voice. I could potentially record a podcast here. And so I inquired on it, and it was incredibly expensive. I think it was $285 an hour. But at the point, I had a little comic book money at that time. I was like, screw it. I'm going to rent 2 hours. I'm going to record a podcast here. I remember I got there, and this was 2013. So there was an engineer there. He was like, hey, man, where's your producer? Where's your band? Where are your instruments? I'm like, no, we don't need none of that. We're just going to record a podcast. And he was kind of like, wait, you're just going to talk? And I'm like, yeah. Is that cool? He's like, yeah, I guess. And it was way overkill. It was like the $2,500 Neumann mics.
Yeah.
And he was looking at me funny the whole time. Like he thought I was like punking him or something. But we recorded a really great podcast. And since it was LA, I got all my actor friends to come in. I scheduled time for them to come in, and it was really fun. And I remember leaving. I was like, I can't believe I did that. It was fun. Like I felt, like Aerosmith. But two, I was like, man, what if there was a space that existed that didn't cost $285 that gave you the same experience?
Yeah.
So that was one of the inspirations for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about your journey through podcasting, but I've been doing, like you said, figuring it out, kitchen table, cheap mics, whatever.
Yeah.
And I went to it was the first time that Blog World had changed over to New Media Expo, and we went to Vegas, and they had a table like this set up in the showroom floor where all the vendors are.
Yeah.
Right. And it was ILPR 40s, which were $300 or $400.
Yeah.
It was this fancy board. But like you said, it's that taste. I sat down, we scheduled time, sat down with my partner, put on the headphones.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these mics sound, and it gave me a goal to grow to, but it got that feel of studio without building it, and then you slowly build up to it.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Most podcasters launch in their kitchens, their basements. One of my friends cleaned out his garage. He recorded in there, which is great. It's convenient, and if you know how to use everything, which is awesome. Most people don't want to do that. Most people don't want to mess with XLR cables,
right?
Mixing boards.
Well, you don't even have to now.
RSS feeds. Yeah. So, now they don't have to. They just come down and do it where we are, and it's worked out pretty well.
That's awesome. So, how did you figure it out? Because everybody likes to look at, well, you were on TV, you must have had a team, and everyone has to start from somewhere, right? How did you figure out your path through podcasting?
I do have to credit Kevin Smith for sure. I didn't even want to do this. I'm an introvert, oddly enough. I grew up very shy. I was a kid who sat in the back of the class, for years in college. I didn't talk to, talking to girls, like, no way, man. But I didn't talk to anybody. And I was like, all right, for the rest of my life, I'll be the guy, I'll be back there. I'll press buttons. I'll be in a dark room. I'll edit. And so I started when Kevin decided to do this way back in 2007. He was like, hey, I need gear. Like, can you figure this out for me? I'm like, absolutely. So I went to Guitar Center.
You were doing the website by then.
I was doing his website, yeah. So I have a technical background.
Because you can do CSS, surely you figure out all the tech in the world, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But even, but the audio world was very new to me. I'd never used a mixing board. At the time, all the gear was geared toward bands and music recording.
Right.
And so it was not very podcast friendly. You used to have a board with like 87 knobs on it. I was like, well, what do these do? I don't know. I just want to record my voice, like three people talking. And I figured it out. It was an old little Behringer board, nice. and some mics we cobbled together. But I figured it out. But about 2 years after he started, he's like, hey, I'm starting a network. I want you to start a podcast. It can't just all be my shows. I want other voices. And so he reached out to the people he knew immediately, the people who worked for him and his friends, to start podcasts. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, my biggest fear was like, well, I didn't go to broadcasting school, so I can't do this, right? I need to sound professional. And what most podcasters realize very early on is that broadcasting schools are a huge waste of money.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible waste of money. He was like, no, it's not like that. You don't need training. Like, all you need to tell a good story per episode.
Yeah.
Just relay. It can be anything. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, of course, you're a natural at this. You're a great storyteller. You're famous already. You can tell the story about how Ben Affleck put his nuts on your neck once. Like, that's which happened. Which you can listen back.
I mean, we all have a story like that.
I didn't have that story, but
that old Benny.
I'm like, what would I podcast about? And he put it to me simply. He was like, what could you talk about for 45 minutes without even preparing for it? Like, what do you love so much? Yeah. What have you done so much? What are you an expert at? What do you love so much that you could talk about straight on for 45 minutes.
What'd you land on?
And I was like, I don't know. I can talk about pop culture and comics for sure, Star Wars and food. And he's like, well, that's a podcast. I'm like, really? Like, which one? He's like, all of them. Combine all of those into a podcast. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Who would listen to such a thing? He's like, well, anybody who loves pop culture, Star Wars, comics, and food, or all of them combined.
You know, everyone, that big umbrella of everyone who likes eating and watching Star Wars.
Yeah, definitely everyone at DragonCon. So, you know, like at the very least, I'd have like 80,000 people potentially. Yeah. But I'm like, that counts? He's like, oh, absolutely. You know, absolutely. I was like, well, if I can do that, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And I grabbed Mike Zapcic, who's my co-star in Comic Book Man, a longtime friend. And I remember we sat down. I was like, well, Kevin wants us to do this. We came out with a real rough outline of what we wanted to talk about. And I was like, Kevin, 45 minutes? That's an eternity. He's like, just do your best. And I remember we sat down, had no clocks, and we went straight on, and 2 hours had gone by. We didn't even realize it.
And that's the magic, man. Like, that's the thing, too. When you do that, and it's happened to me multiple times, but it's just like, oh, heck. Like, I went in with, like, maybe 15 minutes of ideas, and the next thing I know, it's an hour 45.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and not only that, I listened back to it, and I was like, wow, if this was on the radio, this would count. This is actually a pretty good sounding episode. We sound like we know what we're talking about. We have a good flow. We're making fun of each other. This is interesting. Like, wow, how did that happen? And as it explained to me, it's like, listen, you just talked about something that you love so much that your passion came through the microphone, and you made it interesting. And something like Star Wars, like at this point, all three of us probably seen Star Wars more than even freaking George Lucas has. Like George Lucas was like, I was there, I made it. I don't need to see it every year. I don't need to see it 100 times, but we have. And we're probably more of an expert on Star Wars than he is at this point. And from there, and I remember finishing, I was like, wow, that was so fun. Can we keep going? Like, are you up for this? He's like, absolutely. So, that was, 13 years ago, 300 plus episodes. Yeah, it was cool. And it was at that point I realized, like, you don't need training for this. You just need to talk about something that you love.
Life was your trainer.
Yeah.
Well, that and also just perfect table chemistry.
Yeah.
Right. That's for me. That's the hugest part. Is just if the table chemistry is on, like you said, 2 hours can just melt away easily. But I've been in situations where like there's just a little bit of just not connection, and those 2 hours feel like 6. Right. So like it's always great to just feel that groove click.
Yeah.
And just go with everyone.
Yeah, and for the most part, you do. And I mentioned I was very shy, and I came alive behind the microphone. Though something about being behind this microphone, and in the studio, we get a lot of people. They're very nervous. Like, I've never done this. I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, listen, you'll be fine. The host will prompt you, but you're just going to be talking about something that you're a complete expert at, and something you love doing. And sure enough, they open up behind the microphone, like without fail. We've never had anyone freeze or walk out or be like, I can't do this. 100% success rate. Yeah.
I love that because you're a talker, even though you're an introvert, you're a talker. So is Zapcic. And I've coming up through the world, corporate podcast. But what I've really realized is it's relevance versus passion. And there are definitely some people who use their fame and stardom to make a podcast to stay relevant. But as soon as something else comes along, oh, well, the podcast is done.
Right.
And then there's passion where you work the podcast around. And I have a funny story about Zapcic where 2015-ish, Chris reached out and we actually just called the story. We talked to Walt.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, we're doing this show called Breaking the Panel. And Walt's like, Zapcic. And immediately just ended off the phone. And he's like, yeah, sure. But, I don't know you guys. I'll do 10 minutes. Like, cool. He sat for an hour and a half in his car in his driveway because he's just like, hey, we've ruined your time. No, man, I'm good. Hour and a half in his car. I was like, okay, my wife's staring at me now. I got to go in.
Yeah.
But you guys love to talk, and that's relevance and that's passion versus just, hey, look at me. Yeah,
and it's funny. You said Walt handed the phone off.
Yeah,
like he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Walt and Brian Quinn, for any Impractical Jokers fans out there, they have a very successful podcast called Tom, Steve, Dave. They're making like $50,000 a month on Patreon. Nice. So don't let him fool you. Like he loves podcasting as well. Yeah, I mean, this is truly for anybody.
It
everybody.
really is. Because
Yeah.
I noticed the big thing about your story was not, well, my Kevin opened the door or Ben Affleck, blah, blah. It was, no, I figured it out, cobbled it together, because that's really what it's about. And everybody has to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we figured it out. And even Kevin says this. A lot of people approach him like, hey, we love the movies, whatever, but we really love the podcast. And he loves that because, the movies he writes, but, the studio has a little direction on what happens. But the podcast, he completely 100% him. He chooses the direction. He dictates every aspect of that. And because of that, that makes him happier when people like it, because that's all him. And I feel the same way. If you've seen Comic Book, great. But if you come up and say you're a longtime fan of the podcast, that makes me so much happier because all of our 100% of our blood, sweat, and tears went into that.
It's literally it's our baby. It's like it's something that we have complete creative control over, and that we've been constantly working at to make better and craft it tighter and all this. So
would either of you say, and if y'all have questions,
please, anything, ask anything.
We want to give you answers for anything creative wise, but would you say that you've used the word expert and you used the word this is our big creative baby? Is that making people fearful to jump in because they feel like they're not an expert or anything, or that they have to put so much work in?
I don't think so. I think everyone's got one thing that they're really passionate about, and it could be watching TV. Great, and like how many TV recap podcasts are there? It could be going to Comic Cons. It could be cars. Everyone's got something. No matter what, I think everyone's got at least something that they could be that they could talk about. So it's just hitting that point where they're like, hey, why don't I talk about what I love doing, or what maybe what I'm expert at, or something that I poured my life into that I could educate other people on, and recording it, like getting behind a microphone, recording it, and spreading it to a potentially worldwide audience. So,
and you're just talking about, you said it before, what would you talk about for 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours without any problem, without any stuff?
Everybody's got something. Even if you're an alcoholic, you can talk about drinking, you can review alcohol. Literally,
Patreon.com/Botch Podcast. For me, it's yes. Is there fear? Because there's always fear when you go into a new hobby or skill. Right, you're not going to come out and just pick up a guitar and start playing it, classical gas right away. But like the thing about podcasting is, it might be scary to jump in, but it's like any other muscle that you just keep working at it, keep toning it, and keep doing it, so that at some point around, to be honest with you, episode 10 is normally like the hitch point where you feel comfortable enough. You learn mic etiquette and you keep learning. Like I've been doing this for about 7 years now, and there's still new techniques that I'm working on and habits that I still have that I'm trying to break. So it's always a constant thing in motion. You just got to want to propel yourself to better yourself, and then it will just come easily.
Yeah. So, my goal is to get everyone's like, listen, this is fun. Not only is this fun, but once you get behind that microphone, like I'm going to warn you, this is going to be addictive. You're going to want to do this a lot. And, so it's just educating people on that.
Creative burnout. It's a thing. Be careful.
Yeah. Your question.
Yeah, so I podcast with Phil, but also I work for a company, and it's a consulting firm. And part of what I do is trying to put together a basically podcasting as a service kind of thing, which in the corporate universe they're fine with like Blue Yeti mics in a big empty room where it sounds terrible. But maybe for better or worse, they figured out that Adobe has an AI thing where you can just plug whatever garbage audio you want into it, and it spits back pretty okay audio. But fun fact, if you put in good audio, it spits back worse audio. But so my question would be, what are your thoughts on those sorts of tools, either from a personal standpoint or from a business standpoint, using the AI to basically take, you don't have to have good equipment and it just makes you sound studio quality, versus actually investing the time and money into building a studio and the microphones and all that stuff? Because what I find is it tends to make the clients and my company kind of lazier, because they're just like, we could just record it in the cafeteria. And it's like, no big deal. Dennis will fix it. It's fine, whatever. So I was just curious what your thoughts went on.
That's a great question. I mean, you had me at least they had a microphone, right? I mean, most people start out, they didn't even have a microphone. I'll harken back to the pandemic when everyone was doing Zoom and a lot of people started podcasting over Zoom. A lot of people just use whatever laptop mic or whatever default mic they had built in, and it didn't sound great. And but all of a sudden, people learned. I started seeing 90-year-old grandmothers with Blue Yeti mics or Snowballs or whatever, and then all of a sudden they would have the Kim Kardashian ring light. I'm like, did you buy the Kim K ring light? Like, yeah, I wanted to look better on camera. So I mean, it's the Blue Yeti is not a great mic, but it's not a bad mic. It's not terrible.
But it's like if you try to use it in this room,
it's not great. Yeah. But if the AI works to improve the quality, then so be it. If it makes it listenable. I think one thing I did notice that since everyone was doing podcasts on Zoom, people's expectations went down. So they got used to the kind of almost phone quality audio, which it kills people like us.
Does,
But I think the tolerances went down a little bit. And
I get it to the point you got to meet people where they are.
Right.
And I won't call them out because they're doing what they can, but it's a show's been going a long time, and everybody that hosts has amazing microphones, but then they'll get a guest on and it'll be exactly that, the breakup, they're way back here.
They're not even talking to the microphone.
Right. And it's good enough. And so they don't stop it by, I'm like, man, it hurts to hear that because you put in the effort.
Yes.
But we're afraid to say, hey.
But I mean, I even consider say, hey, maybe I'll send them a mic. But even then, they're like, why do I use this? I'm like, all right, this isn't going to work. So, as long as it's tolerable now, people will accept it. But with the AI, I mean, I haven't listened to one that has been spit out. But if it's decent, then I'm all for it. I'm more about actually getting people behind the mic first. At some point, they're going to be like, hey, so how do I sound better? Is it going to cost a lot of money? I'm like, no, not really. You could pick up, a $49 SM48, or if you want to go up a $99 SM58, and you'll notice the difference. And once they do, you don't really go backwards. So
and honestly, that AI is not new. Back in the day, there was Levelator and Levelator 2 for everybody right? That we didn't know how to do it, and they put some little thing together.
You would drop it in.
It wasn't AI active. It was just you drop it in, got what you got.
It's not new to us, but it is new to the general public. Now, look, with AI, it's my opinion that it's a tool, and sometimes a tool is not good for the job that you're doing, and sometimes it is.
Well, tools don't have souls.
Well, I get that, but neither do most of us, right? So the thing is that what I hope happens is that it turns into an educational point, right? And that as a society, we learn together, like, okay, yes, this was a good stepping stone, but now we're going to move on to something else. And it just hopefully will keep growing. And like, if you use it and it works for you, that's great. If it, doesn't work for me, then I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And hopefully educate people, different avenues. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's kind of up to us. It's like, hey, can we just hang some moving blankets in here? Like, it'll make it sound way better. And hey, I'm going to bring my mic in tomorrow so you can notice the difference between this and the one we have here. And once they hear it, it's like, oh, I get it. Okay, yeah, here's some money. Go trick out the studio. So
and you build to it, right? I didn't start with a $400 mic. I podcast for 5 to 10 years before I got that microphone.
Yeah, we used whatever we could get at the budget that we had, and then as things got better.
You guys talk about the barn board.
Okay, so well, first off, we still use some moving blankets, right? We've always used moving blankets. Luckily for us, we were able to build our own sound panels. Just took a couple hours, a day of work, but we went to local hotels and got old bed sheets to build out these wonderful sound panels. And now our studio is great. For us, we literally did it on a shoestring budget where we found, I work for a farm in Gettysburg, and my boss was an old musician and had a lot of old soundboards just sitting around. So I asked him, like, hey, look, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Do you have anything we can have? And down, a quarter mile down the road in a barn in the middle of the field was this Yamaha multi-tracker, which was perfect. We had 5 people on the show, could track out 5 lines one by one. And that's really, we used that for about a year and a half. And we just started, plucking away to see how that we can change things. And apparently our first episodes are still on that multi-tracker.
Oh, nice. It never got deleted.
It never got deleted,
awesome.
but like the boss's grandchildren accidentally
Oh,
listened
no.
to our first
Oh.
episode and had a lot of questions from mom and
Right.
dad. But yeah, you never know where you're just going to find equipment. It's just up to you to kind of educate yourself and roll with it.
And my last thing about the AI, specifically about the audio production part, you've been, I'm sure, done tons of panels and been in tons of rooms. These are just tools, and that's just a tool over there.
Right.
And I'm sure you've had different quality of, man, I can't hear the audience, or these mics are crap, versus somebody who knows what they're doing. Like, man, the room sounds really good.
You can tell.
It still comes down to humans having to put that input and interpretation in the moment.
Yeah, that you can't AI. I mean, I hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, then it'll just free us up to be content creators and let the board run itself.
Yeah, right. I mean, that would be great, actually. But your question.
I don't podcast. I do Twitch streaming.
Sure.
What I was going with the AI thing was your opinion on doing like digital audio manipulation or a physical soundboard, like which is better? I just upgraded from a Blue Yeti mic to an XLR with actual stuff, and it does. I guess I just haven't gotten it switched right yet. But
so is it sounding off to you? What's going on?
Yeah, are you happy with the sound?
Well, the sound is great. It just doesn't sound. It sounds like a fuzzy at one point where my Blue Yeti didn't, and I was using digital sound manipulation, and then the physical sound manipulation is kind of fuzzy.
There's multiple things, right? It could simply be just a poor connection on your XLR cable. Your gain could be cranked too high. With things like this, it's really just keep testing and keep just fidgeting with it. What I used to do to get my level straight is that off stream, because I also do Twitch streams and whatnot, is I would just pull up a quick like Audacity, right? And record a 10-second thing, listen to it back, make some changes on the balancing, and then just keep adjusting one by one on that. I always say invest time over money, but if you're already at that point where you just have little things that you need to do with the board, I think if you just give it an hour of just testing, maneuvering, you should be able to dial in pretty
And you
quick.
can possibly do both. How are you getting is it a USB board? How are you getting your sound into the computer?
It's a USB board.
Yeah.
So you can actually do both. You can get it on the board headphones clean, and then if it's still fuzzy and your broadcast or recording, and I always test record just to see, then you can use the digital tools, because on those USB boards, not everything that you do here translates to the computer. So sometimes it's just straight raw audio. So it might sound good here, but it's different on your stream. If you just test record it, YouTube's your friend. You can usually Google, how do I get fuzz out of my sound, or how do I tweak this board for Twitch, or that kind of thing. It helps.
Yeah, it's usually a simple fix. Those Yeti mics pick up pretty hot. So there's a little gain knob, I think, on the back that turn it down like half a step and see how it sounds. But I'll do the same thing. I'll record myself for a minute, listen back. It's like, all right, I could, I'll tweak this a little bit. And on the boards, now you can adjust the bass and treble, and there's some noise cancellation. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of settings that you could fiddle with. And then if you're like, hey, what is this to? Yeah, go YouTube, man. Like, go to YouTube. There's probably a tutorial about it.
All right.
And it could even be just a quick fix with your XLR cable. Is kind of just
It's usually
janky.
a quick fix somewhere.
Yeah. And it, not for nothing, because economic is not cheap, right? You can get some Amazon basic cables are somewhat decent, but if you get a cheap cable, it might not be shielded, so it's picking up some electricity. So sometimes just swapping your cables out helps.
That's also true with other electronics kind of sitting around the board and microphone as well.
Yeah, pick up some background.
Oh, you remember back
interference?
Your phone,
the buzz.
You would hear it buzz before it actually
Oh, because
rang.
it's trying to acquires the signal, but it feeds back to the gear. Yeah.
Where are you located in the country?
Austin.
So a very short ride. You can come up
To New Jersey.
Yeah. It's only a day, I think. You'll be all right. So, does that help, or you got another question?
I didn't actually think about trying to use both of them.
You can. Yeah, you definitely do a good mix of them. Yeah,
that's the beauty about digital creation of any sort. There is no line. There is no tunnel you have to be in.
Yeah.
It's whatever works, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, for sure.
these nowadays are some of the best cameras, and
and microphones.
Yeah, the iPhone, man, those microphones are insane.
Yeah,
built in there.
Yeah, in a pinch, especially at like a con or DragonCon, it's like, holy crap, there's Paul Bettany. Let me see if I can interview him for 2 minutes. I'll use my phone and then I'll cut it in the episode. And phones are built to pick up good voice, right?
So there's a good question for you about this. Is part of that where we create, right?
Yeah.
You're at a con, presumably doing your work.
Yes.
And you see somebody you want to talk to, and presumably they may or may not recognize you, right? So to them, you're just how many rejections versus acceptance you get? Hey, I'm Ming Chen. Would you record with me on my show for a minute?
Yeah. In the past, a lot of rejections. People like, what is this? Or if it's a bigger person, like, oh, I got to talk to my publicist or whatever. As time went on, though, a lot of them started podcasts. Like almost every actor has started a podcast, which I love because they can like, all right, well, this is what it was really like to work with Ben Affleck. Like, what a jerk. Like, he put his balls on my neck. They don't have a publicist going, no, you can't talk about that. Or you got to stay relevant to whatever movie you're promoting. No, now they're free to say whatever they want. So yeah, in the past, they were very wary. They're like, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't know what a podcast is. Whatever it is, they would come up with an excuse. But now it's gotten a lot easier. It's funny, during the pandemic, a lot of our clients, I was like, hey, so who's that dream guest you want to get? Reach out to them on Instagram and Facebook. Ask them. Right now, they're not working. They're stuck at home. They have no excuse to be like, oh, I can't do it. I'm busy. Like, they're not busy. And honestly, a lot of them missed the adoration. There were no movie premieres anymore. There are no press events. They miss talking to people. They miss talking about themselves. I'm like, reach out to them. They may come on, and sure enough, a lot. If you look, a lot of them. If you see, I saw a lot of podcasts. Just kind of two dudes. It's like, hey, we got Kevin Smith. We got this guy, because they just reached out online, and they were so they're craving that attention so much that they jumped down and started podcasting. So it's a lot easier now than it was, for sure.
And I would, even to your case, because you did Comic Book Men for how many years?
7
years. And of course, I'm sure you did press junkets.
Yeah.
And you had to talk about the show. Most actors and performers do that, but to be able to talk about what you want to talk about. How often on your press junket did you get to talk about Star Wars and food?
I know we were lucky because it was Comic Book Men, so that worked out. But most people, they don't, and I think that's why a lot of people, that well-known people, started podcasts. It's like, well, we have no rules now. I can tell the real story, and no one can tell me I can't.
Or you can do your own drama. You can write a book and read it on air.
Yeah, but even at cons, it doesn't even have to be me. If you're at a con and you notice that maybe it's a little slow, and you see someone you want to talk to it's free. It's like, hey, I'll buy an autograph, but can I also talk to you for 3 minutes? I have a podcast. Is that cool? And either they'll say no, which is okay. You didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
But more often than not, now they'll say yes, for sure.
Yeah. A friend of mine went to one of the Kevin Smith shows.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, I'm gonna get you an opening. I'm gonna get you an opening for your show. And then he got one for Bosch instead. I don't know why I got betrayed like that. But, sometimes that happens, right?
Yeah.
I will tell you, I never expect, because you see a million people. I mean, you go to cons everywhere, so I never expect anybody to remember me. But every time I've run into you, I think it's been 3 or 4 different cons.
Like, hey, man.
Hey,
what's up?
5 minutes, he'll talk to you, and then you've been great. You're really great that way, and I think a lot of creators really are when you're respectful. You come and say, "I've never been like, hey, do 1 hour of my show right here in the parking lot in the heat." But like, hey, how you doing? How's the work going?
Right.
Cool. See you later.
Yeah, and the other thing I know, most actors or whoever, they. While they're working on a big movie, they have that passion project, that maybe that indie movie they're working on. They want to talk about that. They want to promote it, and they don't, their indie movie, they don't have a publicist for it. What a great way to promote it. So, I like, without a fault, they're working on something on the side that they want to talk about. So, I usually steer the conversation toward that. It's like, hey, I know you have this movie coming out. What else are you working on? Like, what do you really want to talk about?
Right. That's when I don't do it when I host the celebrity Q&A panel. That's the first thing I ask. Like, what is it you want to really hit before we leave the stage today?
Exactly.
Because there's always something.
Yeah. Always.
What do you? We still got time, but what is something besides your everything you've been passionate about? What's something passionate that you haven't talked about yet?
Oh man, that's a great question. Well, I mean, with the podcast, I'm able to talk about anything I'm passionate. But I'm passionate about the DragonCon, man. This is my 5th DragonCon, which is relatively new. Kind of I'm not totally new.
Well, it's kind of like war. You've been vetted, man. You've been in
Yeah.
the trenches now. You're good.
Yeah. No, I know
in a good way. It's the DragonCon's a good war.
Yeah. I know the tunnel to the Petrie Center. I know, I was like, dude, if you want a cheap lunch, go to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I know where the dump party is, which is like one of these rooms down here
Yeah.
on Monday night. Every year I go to DragonCon, you see something new. I was like, wait, there are robot wars on Monday? It's like, yeah, man, have you not checked that out? It's awesome. Or there's this, there's always something new. But I'm really, I love this convention, man. I love not sleeping. I love, I remember the first year I was here, someone's like, hey man, you going to the rave? I'm like, when's that start? They're 3 a.m. I'm like, yeah, right on, man. I'll be there. They're like, hey man, have you had the pie? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, here, take a sip of this. So, you learn the mistakes, you learn what not to, you learn what to do, you learn what not to do. And then you pass it on to new people, which is probably my favorite thing. I have a couple friends, it's their first DragonCon, and they're like, well, what can I expect? I'm like, dude, I can't explain it to you.
Yeah.
I can try, but yeah, I can send you photos, all the video, but it's not going to convey the experience.
I love that we all actively have a pie mistake story.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, big
Somebody-
time.
I wouldn't call it a mistake.
Oh,
Shannon
I-
Panda gave him. I mean, Shannon did well. I enjoyed the pie she brought.
I didn't know, and they handed it to me when I was up on stage, and I had no
yeah.
idea. So I drank about half a gallon of it.
Oh,
and it was
man.
just like,
Yikes.
good luck, bud. You're
Yep.
gonna have a weird night.
I think that was the alcohol throwing
yeah,
night.
there was a lot of things that went wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love is this. I I don't think stuff like this, like podcasting, streaming 4 years ago was not a thing. So I love that there's a digital media track, there's a digital creation track. That makes me really happy. And yeah, I love that
And
we're
we're
streaming
gonna-
at 10 a.m. on a Friday. Like this is great.
We start at 10 a.m. every day, and it goes till 1:30, 2 o'clock
Yeah,
every day.
it's
There's
great.
always something. And we're gonna have you bring your live show next year.
Oh yeah,
Your
I would love
live
that.
show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're gonna. That's what I'm trying to build more towards
Yeah.
is some bigger live performances of the show.
Yeah.
Right now we got botched.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that this is awesome and this exists and it's continuing to grow. But you have your own space here to create, and I'm glad that you brought me on too. So this is really cool.
We're gonna have you all day, right? We booked you for the day.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, cool.
you got more.
every panel. He's just gonna move. Chairs.
I get progressively drunker and drunker as the day goes along. Yeah,
It's 1 o'clock. Why are you under the table?
yeah. Just give me a mic. I'll be down here.
You're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
kill
yeah.
on that empowering women panel.
That's something I can talk about for sure. Yeah.
We did something new this year, and I'd love to get it on your radar and everybody's radar because we had a great turnout, but it's the first year the Digital Media Track did a party, and we did it on Wednesday night because Wednesday is the pre-con night. Because last night we did five or six panels.
Yeah.
But it's off. It was at Park Tavern. It's Wednesdays are a drag and con party. We had 5 drag queens.
Amazing.
And it was a blast. We had Miss Frizzle come
Yeah.
out, and we had Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
came and did a show.
Catwoman.
It was
Barbie, yeah.
so great. It was very geek themed. It was so fun. So
Sailor Moon.
anybody comes into town Wednesday before the con, we're gonna have that party every year. And
Yeah, I tried to. Ironically, someone paid me a bunch of money to live stream, and I was like, "Crap! Well, I can't turn that down. I'll just go on Thursday." So, which is what I did.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
well, that's the beauty of DragonCon, right? You might find moments that you're making connections or streaming or something.
Yeah,
Hey, always, in my opinion, always take the opportunity.
Oh yeah, for
You
sure.
can party later.
Yep.
You can have fun later. You can sit down
Yeah.
later. Take the opportunities given to you right now. And we still got some time if you got more questions.
Yeah, ask
We'll do
anything.
that.
It doesn't even have to be about podcasting, but I'll steer it back to
Yeah,
podcasting
okay.
for sure.
And that's why we call it. So we went to digital media because we wanted to open the doors.
Yeah.
The heart of podcasting will still work in YouTube. The heart of YouTube will still work on Twitch.
Yep.
Wherever you create,
Doesn't
there are
matter.
core
Find-
principles.
Yeah, find what platform you like. doing it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I tell people all this all the time. Kids, adults, whatever. It's like, listen, something like this didn't exist 10 to 15 years ago. Wasn't this accessible? We live in a pretty great world right now where in the past, if you wanted to do something like this, you had to go to broadcasting school. Then you had to get hired by a radio station.
Yeah, intern.
Yeah, then they would give you a time slot where you couldn't talk about what you wanted to talk about. You had to stick to their format, break for commercials, and you had rules. Yeah, now, you can set something like this up and, very easily on your own and create your own radios, your own show. And the radio is, only goes out to whatever the airwaves go out to, a city. This is worldwide. This goes out to everybody. And, if you wanted to have your own TV show or short, or you couldn't do that. You'd have to go to a network, get a budget, shoot a pilot, pitch it. Yeah. Now you can whip out your phone, record it, maybe do a little editing, throw it up on YouTube, potentially get an audience, which is even bigger than if you were on TV. Like, that's awesome. And then now, back, if you wanted to go live, 10 years ago,
it was tough. 15
years ago, you needed a satellite truck, you needed uplinks, it was impossible. Now you can literally whip out your phone and hit a little button that says go live, and you can do it.
Yeah.
Like, these are all things we should be taking advantage of. It truly is, right? So everybody.
Your voice will change the world.
Yeah.
I also think when you say where we create is, for me, it's also platform based, right? Because yes, we do this on our RSS feeds, but I also take live video and then cut it into different little shorts, right? So like, I'm taking my one medium and then putting it on different platforms just to see what hits and what doesn't, right? Because things that work on, let's say, the YouTube shorts doesn't hit on TikTok, right? Because it's a different algorithm and it's a different thing. But on the same thing, something stupid on TikTok doesn't work on my YouTube shorts. So it's kind of like, where we create is kind of everywhere, and you just got to hope that, it gets picked up somewhere. But also, don't worry about your numbers, because as long as it's one person, that's still somebody that's giving you their time out of their day. I stopped caring about numbers a long time ago, and it just kind of gave me a stress-free place to create. And it's more important for me to have my friends laughing at the table than to watch this number that really doesn't matter click up or down.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. Like, listen, numbers. Try not to worry about them too much. I'm like, listen, would you rather have 10,000 people that, all right, maybe they listen casually, or would you rather have 1,000 people that hang on your every word, that can't wait till you put out another episode, that if you put out a T-shirt, they want it. That's the audience.
That's amazing, because like, right? I ran through Atlanta Airport a couple years ago and like saw people wearing my shirt.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's the best thing that's happened to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't approach it, but just like seeing it and just being like, holy, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You're like, man.
Hey, let me sign your shirt real quick. Like, who are you? What are you doing?
Don't touch me, weird man.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, you guys both have a lot of passion when you're presenting and stuff. And one thing that I always thought was a difficult thing for myself, and I imagine others, is just that mic discipline. It's like, you're excited. It's like, oh, I got to look at the thing over here. I got to look over the thing over here. Oh, we're talking about this. How do you keep in the background, or some tips you might have to just have that better mic discipline? Because, I mean, we can all have a really good mic experience, even with a laptop, if you get close enough to that pinhole. It's just a matter of just how close and being properly close to that mic.
Yeah. So for me, very simple. Wear headphones. You wear headphones, you can hear yourself. And so we got a lot of new people coming in. It's like, do I have to wear these? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They're like, why? I don't want to mess up my hair. I was like, I don't care about your hair. Put on the headphones. They're like, why? I was like, well, because once you have the headphones, you're supposed to, you want to sound like this. If you have the headphones and you're back here like this doesn't get recorded. This is what it's going to sound like. You want to be up here. You wear the headphones, you can hear them. You have audio feedback. And yeah, they're like, oh, I don't like the sound of my own voice. Like, well, you better get used to it.
Yeah.
You don't do this.
That I understand.
Yeah. But once they get used to it, like, okay, we understand now. So the headphones make a huge difference. You might get guests or even co-hosts even that don't want to wear them. Like, dude, it's not that hard.
Doing that.
Yeah, they're gonna do it. And yeah. But yeah, for me, very simple. If you can hear where you are in relationship to the microphone, you're gonna talk into the microphone.
Muscle memory.
And even long before that meme came out, I built that habit when somebody started backing up, microphone, and now it's the meme from Wolf of Wall Street, I think it was. But it's like, that's what I was saying. Listen to yourself, people. Man, you gotta stop with I hate my own voice. I don't like. You have to love your voice, because you got to hear it. Because if you don't, other people are here loving your voice, and then they can't hear it. So that I produce a show for my wife and daughter called A True Queen, and they interview drag queens. And I have them on headphones. And the last video I did, you'll see, if you watch, it's subtle, but you'll see where I'm coming from off camera and I'm pushing the boom arm in because my wife keeps doing this.
Yeah.
And she says she's not. And I'm like, I'm watching the camera.
Look, yeah,
and
look.
you see the mic move, and then a little bit subtly let it on. And so, and she has headphones. So I'm teaching her, if you don't hear yourself, nobody else hears you. So,
but also, like I was saying before, with guitar playing or a new hobby or a new habit, you just have to kind of train your brain. If you've been watching me up here all day, every time I take a sip, I move my mic away because nobody wants to hear me, drink water.
well, that's for your Patreon ASMR.
But it's really just getting into that habit and just making it kind of like, Mario 1-1, where it's muscle memory that anything you're going to do, it's just going to hopefully
Mario.
Mario 1-1 memory, man. You know what I meant. I don't have to explain it. Where it just clicks and it just happens. Now, look, man, I still have bad mic etiquette, and that's why I use normalizer every so often to bring my levels back down. But just give it time and just keep doing it, and it will come to you at some point, and you won't even realize it.
Yeah, they don't have to be expensive. My favorite headphones are $10 Sonys on Amazon.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're really good.
We've got a Twitch question.
Yes.
How do you find a co-host if you don't have many friends but still want to podcast?
I got you. The question is, how do you find a co-host if you don't have many friends and you still want a podcast? No, I'm not volunteering to do it. I heard you in the audience. Come to the Digital Media Shark Tank later, and we might help you with that. But no, I have that answer. Is you just put it out, and my buddy Hugh, who will show up at some point, he is the poster child for just hobbyists. He never wanted to be big. But I was like, hey, I started doing live. And it's back before even Justin TV, which is now Twitch. It was some other, I know it's for like webcam girls back in the day, but it was this weird site that could have a phone line. Like I put it out there. I need somebody to call in and help me. And he started calling in and he said, hey, you seem to do better when you're talking to somebody. If I just sit on the phone, was that cool? And then we did a show a little bit together. But you put it out there in the communities you're in. What advice would you guys give?
Yeah. So if you decide you want to co-host, it's an important decision because ideally you want to find someone who's as passionate as you are.
And balances.
Yeah. One of the number one reasons podcasts crumble is like, oh, what happened? You only recorded 10 episodes. Is when the co-host starts dropping out. Like, oh, I can't record this week. My girlfriend needs me. My dog needs me. I can't record this week. And then, there's, it makes me laugh every time. But there's a lot of podcast drama out there. It's like, oh, we're getting huge. You get egos taking over. You get fights. And then, all of a sudden the show stops. So, finding someone as dedicated as you are, I feel is very important. Maybe you don't need a co-host. Maybe, I feel like I need ones. I need someone to bounce things off of. More importantly, I need someone to make fun of. That's if you've seen Comic Book Men, we do a lot of that. But barring that, in the beginning, your co-host needed to be physically there. We didn't really have the technology to bring people in remote. Now we do. So your co-host may be, you may have to use Zoom. Your co-host may not be physically there, but if they're as dedicated and they're passionate and they'll record every week and you have a good rapport, then your co-host may be somewhere else in the world. But so while your immediate friend group may not be physically there, you may have somebody online that you relate to or click with. See if they want to do it with you. You easily do a Zoom or use a streaming platform or online platform to bring people together.
DragonCon actually offers something for you, but I'll talk about that in a second.
But no, it's just doubling down on all of it. We live in such a society right now that we're all connected through different little communities, if it's not Discord or Reddit or even small Facebook groups. The fact that we can bring in people that are all around the world right now is at the easiest time of content creation, right? We had to have everybody in Gettysburg to do the show 7 years ago. And now I've got people down in Georgia. I've got people down in Louisiana. And what we do is, since they are not in studio with us, we have everybody record their own tracks, right? So that I can bring in their sound, and if the quality is not where it is in studio, it allows me to interact with it and manipulate it to boost it up and get it kind of even, so it sounds on show that everybody's literally just around the same table.
Yeah.
But you've got communities out there. You're already in communities because you're thinking
Yep.
about it. So just reach out to your community. And it's just like reaching out to celebrities. The worst thing that can happen is somebody says no and they don't want to do it. But what I would do is find that co-host and then just not even recording, talk to them, have a conversation, see how the words flow between you, see how the chemistry is, and then go out and do, a pilot one and then shop it around to your friends and family to see if this is something that could catch and that's interesting enough, and just go from there and build.
And I don't know if it's loaded. I got you. We need to get the QR code for our social media loaded into StreamYard so we can put it up. But our Discord for the DC Digital Media Track, tons of creators, and there's rooms for all of that. But beyond all that, you find where you want to share your content, share your ideas, become a part of that community, and you never know what grows out of it. Kurt, who's here in the audience, followed a show that I did with Brian Ibbett back in the day, and he started doing his own little podcast, but he was part of our community. He would feed us information. He would show up in the live chats. He would talk to us. And then when I went to do a second show, a different game came out. We sunsetted that game. We had gotten on the phone for something. And I said, hey, man, I think he goes, oh, have you played this game? It was just his phone call. I was like, hey, let's start doing a show. We did it for 5 years-ish. And that's how we became co-hosts. But it was that community-based first where you're just talking to the point of where Kevin said, what would you talk about? And 2 hours, you and your buddy.
Yeah.
That's all it was. You and your buddy wasn't
Yeah.
doing another creator. It's just, y'all were just talking. And that's how you find your co-hosts. And they don't have to be friends. I mean, I've definitely done some shows, Kurt over there.
Yeah, I also did a show with Kurt over there.
Why are we doing the finger?
Well, we don't want to know what we're talking about.
But the other thing that we can offer you, and this is something I would love to partner with a little bit with your studio so we can steer people in your area that way, is if you don't know what it's like to go live, you just want to start testing the waters, twice a month on DC Digital Media on Twitch, we have open stream night. And you do have to sign up. You come into our Discord. Again, it's on the QR code. I want to say it's I got to memorize a tiny URL before I tell you the wrong one. So use the QR code. We'll get it loaded. It's on our Facebook page, on our social medias. But get in our Discord. You sign up, and open mic night, we've got an engineer that will run the stream for you. So you don't, and if you want to practice running it, they'll take their hands off and just supervise and let you practice running the stream. If you go, I don't have anybody to talk to, Tyra Burton and some other people get in there and who've used to moderating, talking, they'll help keep you calm. And it's all free, 100%. Because we want, same your passion, we want you to start figuring out what you want to do and how you want to create. So that is something you can do. And it's just open stream night. And
that's cool. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
So I know. You're welcome. What can I say? I'm sorry. Am I boring you out there?
It was so nice until you did that.
Yeah, that's most things that he does.
Look, let me tell you something else. Tell me if I'm wrong, Ming, because Phil doesn't count.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in what you do is good, is it worth even trying?
I mean, well, how are you going to get other people to believe that, right? So, yeah.
What can I say? Except you're welcome. Come on.
If you've been thinking about doing this, go out there and do it. If you have questions, talk to other podcasters. What I love about this community is everyone's so welcoming and open. If you need advice on gear or how to start or preparation or anything, to a T, every podcast is very open with that information. We love helping other people out. We want to see everybody doing this. Most podcasters I meet, they did not grow up as audio engineers. They have no formal training. So most of us learned throughout the last 10 years how to record a podcast. The last thing we want to do is see you make those same mistakes. So we will pass on that information. We're all very open with that. So, find us online, find me online, come into the studio. If you have any questions, I'll sit down with you for 2 hours if I have to and run you through everything.
And I think we talked about this before we started doing the panel, but I guess you came in from my radar. You came in under the radar a little bit later. I wish I'd known you because we're doing a panel on when it doesn't have to be perfect, when good enough is good enough.
Yeah,
we're doing on finding your niche, building neighborhoods.
It's awesome.
Not all this. We got so many panels like that throughout this weekend with that heart. But we're out of time, so Phil, we'll start here. where can they find you on the web? What do you want to promote?
Imaginary Nomad, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram with a 1. Here at DragonCon, I have Blood Feud 5, which is a D&D Family Feud game show that's going to be Saturday night at 10 o'clock in the Marriott. And then the Botch Podcast Season 8 premiere, we are doing an SCP campaign, and that will be in the Hilton Crystal Ballroom on Sunday night.
The podcast studio is called A Shared Universe. That's at ashareduniverse.com or A Shared Universe on all social media. My personal one is Ming Chen 37, MINGCHEN 37. And if you need me, find me tonight. I'll probably be over at the Claremont Lounge at some point, or either the Marriott or the Hyatt drinking a rum bucket. So
Rum buckets.
Yeah.
Buckets of rum.
Yeah, for sure.
Heavy. Rock on a podcasting, Charles McFall. Link is Linktree. So it's linktr.ee/all caps RGOP42. It's got all my links on there. I'm doing Wise and Nerdy tomorrow night live at 7 here on this track. And every morning we're going to have a different guest on talking about the different aspects of creation. And I want to say thank you to Chris Wisdom for hustling, because Ming, we didn't even know you're here, and we appreciate you coming in and sharing some. I mean,
Absolutely.
I really wish,
It's an honor being here with you guys. Definitely.
it's been amazing. And my biggest thing is on TikTok right now. That's easy advice to give. Trying to get to 1,000 followers so I can do live, because I really love interacting with
Start
people.
following.
Yeah, you don't have to. After you follow, you don't have to watch. I just need that one number, because that's the door. Then I
Don't
can do
worry.
live to my 2 people that want to talk to me live.
You know
They won't watch.
You know
so
they
don't
got
have to
Asian. They
promote
got
that.
Asians for that, right? You can buy. You can get a little Asian kid in Asia. You pay him. What is it, like $10 for 1,000 followers? I mean, it doesn't.
I just need to hit the door so I can start talking to people. That's
You've
what
been hitting doors your whole life, man.
All right. Thank you.
you,
Cure
guys.
childhood cancer. Donate. DragonCon matches it dollar for dollar up to $125,000. And thank you to Zakat.org for sponsoring our track this year. They are changing kids' lives and helping the world. They're also a charity organization, and they have made it possible for us to do what we do here on the track this year. Thank you, Twitch, and thank you, Ming, for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
So, we'll have you sign.
We need a photo.